do tonight, given that it is Holy Thursday, and it is the celebration of the institution of the priesthood. We could talk about the priesthood a little bit, and particularly an aspect of the priesthood that I think a lot of lay people don't appreciate, and that's the joy of the priesthood. It's for us lay people, that might seem like a kind of a remote thing, or maybe even an impossible thing, because what we see is how much you give up. We see the hours you put in. We see the economic benefits that you could have from having a professional career instead of serving the church in this way. We see that you're not married, you don't have children. Those are all very much sacrifices. And for us, that would seem, isn't that something that would be a matter of sorrow, because you're not experiencing those things that so much of us derive joy from?
I'll tell you one thing about that, what a friend of mine did, who was lived next door to me in the seminary. He was a year or two ahead of me, and was like me. He was a professional, owned his own condo in the beach areas around Manhattan Beach, that area.
Right.
And left it all to go to the seminary. And he said, but what he had to do, because you have a lot of time to discern while you're there, but there's always kind of like a hook each year that gets you coming back. You do your philosophy, and then it's okay, but I got to see theology now. I've done philosophy, I've got to
check that out.
Yeah. So you come back for first year of theology, and it's pretty good. And then you say, well, next year we get what comes first, ministry of reader. So let me stay for that, and I can be a lector forever. And you get the hook, and then then you'd say, well, I'm going to go on internship. So you need to see what internship's about. So that's the hook to bring you back. And you finish internship and say, well, let me put it. I've gone this far. Let me do this third year of theology, and you get ministry of acolyte, and finally it comes to the fourth year, and now you're looking at the big promises, diaconate, when you have to promise celibacy and make commitments for life and things.
Solemn vows, right?
Yeah, that's when the discernment really kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
It really kicks in, because if I go through with this is for life. This is not just something, I'll try it out if I don't like it, I'll change my mind down the road.
Right.
It is for life. So this friend of mine got all the way to that last year, and the discernment kicked in. He said, I had to go off by myself and mourn the children I would never have, and tell each one of them I'm sorry that they were not going to be born.
It's a very interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, that's what he needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
At least not born to him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, you describe this as a hook that brings you back, but another way that Aquinas talks about this is as a desire that propels you forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You play games with yourself. But it is, if the desire wasn't there, the hook wouldn't matter.
You wouldn't continue.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I never wanted to be a priest at all. I had zero desire. And my brother, we thought he was crazy because he wanted to be a priest. He went to Thomas Aquinas College and met a priest, and he said, "No, that's what I want." So he entered the seminary, and I just was looking for a road trip.
So at St. John's Seminary?
No, with the Legionaries of Christ in Connecticut. So I went Christmas time. Right after Christmas, I drove down to see him. We went down, we played hockey, which was my sport. And these guys were great, but I couldn't understand their happiness. It was so cold. There was very little heating. The food was terrible. And I'm going, why are these guys so I asked the priest, I said, well, these men have a mission. They've understood the purpose in their life, and they're not afraid to say no because they've said yes. It's a yes, not a saying no.
And not a maybe.
And so I returned, and I went back, and there was a party, and I was saying how cool these guys were. I mean, these guys were good guys, all of them. You know, we had a priest in our parish who was 90 years old for about 40 years. Yeah, how a little kid looks at it, you know.
Nice math there. Yeah.
But these were, as we said yesterday, young, but they all had a purpose, and they were going to save souls, bring people to Christ, change culture. They weren't going to complain about it. They were going to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I started to go on and on about how cool these people were. And my girlfriend turns to me and says, well, if you think it's so worthwhile, why don't you become a priest? At which everybody began to laugh. And I go, can you imagine him giving a homily? He'd cure insomnia. And so I shut up. I took my girlfriend home. And on Salt Springs Road, I hear this voice. Well, if it is such a worthwhile thing, well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
I got plans. So the next 3 months, I could not get that voice out of my head. If it's so worthwhile, if this is a mission and a purpose that is so awesome. So I went and did a summer of discernment, and a shoe fit and scared the heck out of me. And I remember going home on an airplane, and I just said, okay, Lord. And this peace came over me, and I've never looked back. But it was like, I fought it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And we have those incidents in the Bible too, where you have someone wrestling with God, trying to fight, and somehow God always wins those.
But the power of mission and purpose, to know that you're doing God's work. You're His hands, you're His lips, you're His eyes.
I'm interested about this happiness, though. The bad meals, the cold weather, the lack of heating. I'm sure it was a very simple life for them.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a happiness that comes from these sensible pleasures. A good meal is a cause for happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a passing happiness. And I'm wondering if there's a distinction between the happiness that's based on sensible things, pleasures, versus this intellectual virtue of joy that you're describing now.
And it's based, in the novitiate, they do an hour meditation in the morning, hour adoration every day, and the evening with an hour of prayer. They have the rosary, they have the spiritual reading, and they have a camaraderie in family. You know, what are the joys of being a priest? To go out riding my bicycle with Father Tony. We take off and I try to keep up with him. Right? It's the friendships. It's the common, the bonding, because we're at war together. We're in foxholes together. We're all working for the same thing in a different way. But you respect the other person. You know their sacrifice, their focus, and their love of the Lord and their love for souls. And you go, man, he's my brother.
And he's bringing different gifts than you perhaps
Absolutely.
have. And
Yes.
together the Holy Spirit seems to find a way to unite that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the great things when I see the seminarians, for example, come together. Because in my classes, you see many different types of gifts. And yet there is that common purpose that unites them. And they do feel a bond of friendship, of loyalty to each other, and especially this love for the church.
Yes. Yep.
Is that always joyful?
Well, I'll tell you, in the seminary, my experience, you put a group of men together, and you'll see some of the worst behavior you've ever seen in your life, just because it's the nature of men at times. But you get into the seminary, and you also see some of the best behavior you've ever seen in your life. You know, the best group of people you've ever been around.
Mm-hmm. There's a real sense of the unity of the group and cohesiveness and a willingness to sacrifice for others.
Yeah.
That to me was very surprising.
And for that, you know, for that handful who may not have that, if they get ordained, they struggle in priesthood. They really struggle in priesthood.
How can someone discern that? How did you discern that this was the right decision for you?
I think, was it the first night I told my story? You didn't get to hear it.
No.
I got a phone call.
A real phone call.
A real phone call. When I got the call, I got the call. But I did zero external discernment. Nothing. Didn't talk to anybody. I didn't call anybody. I didn't talk to the vocations office. Nothing. All my discernment was internal. And it took about 10 years. It just took about 10 years because I knew what I wanted. Which wasn't priesthood.
Right.
Which wasn't priesthood. You know, because I'm teaching and I'm coaching. I've got this vision. Someday I'm going to coach my own kids. And you know, I'm teaching religion and math. And I love teaching religion. I love teaching math and U.S. history. I said, I mean, what could be better than this? I get to do what I like, and I get paid for it too.
Mm-hmm.
And someday it's going to be my own kids here. But, you know, the stupid idea of priesthood, I don't want to say, you know, I say stupid laughing about it, would not go away. And I fought it for 10 years. And, you know, there were 3 critical moments too. I've talked about one that I don't talk about at all, but I told the one that when I was sitting in church, maybe around 1988 or so in the prayer service, not paying attention, and it was kind of an overcast day like today, not raining, but just cloudy all the way. And I said, all right, Lord, you know, I can't get rid of this idea. If you want me to be a priest, I need a sign, you know, because I'm not doing anything with it. And
it's very Hebrew.
It was, but in the stained glass windows, St. John the Baptist, Baldwin Park, they're stained glass windows so the sun doesn't get through. But there was one little piece of a window broken in a corner, and as soon as I say I need a sign, somehow the clouds parted, a ray of light came right through that little hole and hit me in the face.
Duh. Okay.
And it took me about, maybe 2 weeks to say that was coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
And forgot about it for the next time. This was December of 1992. Finally, I'm driving home one night and praying, Lord, the idea just doesn't go away. You know, it's been years now, at least 10 years, and it doesn't go away, and it prevents me from moving ahead with what I want, which is to marry and have my family and my kids. And so I'll bargain with you. If you want me to be a priest, you have to get the ball rolling. Take the first step, get the process started, whatever it is. And if you do that, I'll follow through. But I'm not going to start it myself. It's been too long, I haven't done anything, I know I'm not going to. So it's kind of in your hands. If you want me to do this, then you do something. And 3 days later, I got a phone call. About 7 at night. Father Jesse from the vocations office. I was given your name, you might want to be a priest. 3 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So
the process began.
Yeah, so I said, okay.
But isn't that how all these things happen? I mean, God always initiates,
Yeah.
and it's up to us to respond, even if it takes 10 years for us to
Yeah.
find it out. That's good.
Yeah.
So what would you two say then to people who are listening now, and maybe there are sons there, young adults who are maybe going through the process that you were going through 20 or 30 years ago? What should they be doing? Because we know that God is calling lots of young men to consider the priesthood.
Great question.
And our culture is adamant that that's a waste of time.
And a lot of families think that. A lot of young people want to be priests, and their parents freak out. I come from a weird family. We have 3 priests, a nun, and one who's actually normal. He's a psychologist trying to figure out what the heck happened to the rest.
Uh-oh.
And my parents never talked about the vocation. But they did talk about love for the church, the need to pray for souls and for the church, the need for us to be holy, and to do whatever God wants us to do, and to have great ideals that we can change the world. And
What a great foundation.
and so every time we said something, they would go, well, you know something? Whether you have a vocation or not, that's between you and God. You do it only because you feel God is calling you. There's no other reason. And so, we've taught you to love God. And you need to love God wherever He's calling you. So that, we'll support you no matter what. So that was a beautiful help. And when my sister, after the 3 of us go in, my sister comes in and says, Mom, I finally found, because she wanted to have 10 kids. She always talking about marriage. I finally found the perfect husband. And my mom said, really? And she said, yeah. The perfect husband. And my mom said, oh God, no. To herself. She said, yeah, I visited the Dominicans in Nashville, and it was like I was home. And I'm going to enter into the convent. My mom said, there's one thing we've taught you, to do God's will, whatever it is. She left, went back teaching in Rochester, and my mom cried for a week straight. Didn't tell my sister that. Told us. But it was tough. And yet my parents couldn't ever be happier. Because humanly speaking, it's difficult. But you're getting... my parents are frustrated grandparents. They don't have any grandkids. Yet they have thousands of grandkids.
And I think that's so important from a parent's perspective. What we want is for our children to flourish, to do what God has called them to do, whatever that might be, and to see them grow and to be happy and to experience that kind of joy. And necessarily, maybe you don't have grandchildren as a result, but you have something much richer than that. And that to me is a great
but
gift.
we've touched more kids' lives, more families' lives. I mean, how many children do you have as a godfather? Your godfather to how many?
20? Something like that. About
I
20.
saw your eyes just light up.
Some godchildren, I talk about them all the time.
Just it shows you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They want the example. They want somebody you can count on. They want the model. They want
That role model, right?
Yeah. Oh, I do hope nobody asks me anymore. It's hard to keep up now. It's really hard to keep up.
The greeting cards and all the
Yeah.
things that go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're all special. But there are 4 that I see every week. Yeah, and the 3 originals that I talk to all the time, even though they're old now, in the early 40s. The 3 originals, but the 4 that I have an apartment attached to their home. So
Okay.
I spend my day off there
Okay.
in vacation time.
Well, so I don't want to let you off the hook here.
Yeah.
That question: what would you counsel people who are listening about young men who might possibly have a vocation?
Well, I don't know if I never bother to think if my story is unusual or if it's just the normal. But from early age on, I loved the church. My mother was absolutely devoted, would never let us get away with not going to Mass on a Sunday for any reason, whatever, Catholic school and so forth. And with the sisters, the love of God, who were from Spain, my dad's country, They're at St. Martha's and St. John the Baptist right now, Baldwin Park still. But because of them, I figured it out early. This is the church. This is the church of the apostles, the church Jesus founded. All these other different Christian denominations, but this is the church, the number one. That stuck with me. Why would I want to go anywhere else?
The love of the church is so important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And so from my mother, I saw the faith. Now my father, I only saw him in church twice in his life. And one was when his best friend died. And the second one was when he died.
Mm. And that one was sort of involuntary.
Yeah. Yeah. He left Spain. I didn't know until 1987. He arrived here in 1912 in the U.S. I didn't know until 1987 when I went to Spain. And we knew he'd left home at 16, had a fight with his father and left. And we had no idea why. He never told us what happened. So I went to Spain, and he had one surviving sister, and her children told me the story that his father was trying to force him to be a priest, to go to the seminary, and he didn't want to, and it was a big fight, so he left because he didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that.
Well, that would be an example of where external pressure is being applied,
Yeah.
and there isn't the vocation.
But from him,
But
though, what I learned, even though he didn't go to church, is absolutely what it means to use your life of service to other people. And we had a grocery store, and then that was his profession finally from the time I was born. And I have no idea how much people owed him money, because we had books and books and books and people buying stuff on credit and just keeping the tab, and we're supposed to come in monthly and pay it, and whatever he could do to help, he helped. He worked 365 days a year, never took a day off. But his funeral would have filled the cathedral. That many people loved him. Remember one time he had this jacket that had ripped and holes, and it was just the worst thing. So for Christmas, the family gave, okay, you need a new jacket. That one looks like the rats have gotten to it.
it's had its day.
Yeah. And so, he was happy, thank you, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, about a month went by, and we noticed he's wearing the old rat eaten jacket again. And nobody wants to ask him, what happened to your jacket? And then we saw one day one of the local homeless people walking down the street with it.
His jacket.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of the letter of St. James.
Yep.
Except that instead of maybe giving the worst one of your two jackets,
Yep.
he gave the best one.
Yep.
That is impressive.
So between mother and father, I got the full example of the gospel. But yeah, what should they be doing? Learn to love the church. Keep your mind open.
Keep your mind open.
Keep your mind open. You don't necessarily hear God unless you're listening. I know I pushed it away for years.
And ask for the Holy Spirit to be present, to come and help with guidance.
Yeah.
And it might not necessarily lead to the priesthood, because there are many vocations within the church. But I think there are a lot of priestly vocations out there.
Yeah.
We just
And inviting people just to the seminary, just to see
look
what's
and
going
see.
on.
Yeah.
And I mean, I never would have been a priest if I hadn't done that visit.
Mm-hmm.
It intrigued me. Something I'd never seen before. So I think seeing it is half the battle of discernment. It just
The recognition that there's a gift there.
and the type of life that these people are living, and the type of people who are living it. Yeah, and the mission behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and asking somebody, why? Why are you going there?
It's a great
Why are
question.
you doing
to
this? Don't you like girls? I remember asking a couple of guys that. Don't you like girls? And they would burst out laughing. Of course. Wouldn't you like a family? Of course. Wouldn't you like kids? Of course. That's even better.
Something even better.
Even better. It's not a no to that. It's a yes to him.
Mm-hmm.
and a mission and a, I mean, there is no satisfaction like bringing people back to the church. Like your story of your first confession.
Yeah.
I mean,
For field ed, when I was in the seminary, I got assigned to work at Sybil Brand Women's Jail while it was still open. And then I continued it after field ed ended and switched over to Twin Towers when the women were there, and did that for about 4 years, 2 years seminary and 2 years after ordination. Then I get newly ordained. And I did 2 first masses. Had the big one at my home parish.
Right.
But they didn't know I'd gone to the jail to do my first mass there.
So that was your first.
My first mass was in the jail at
That's beautiful.
8 a.m. or 9 a.m. with the pod that I visited most regularly, where I had some regulars that I would see every week and so forth. So I did my first mass there. But here I am before that, newly ordained, and go down to the chaplain's office down there and say, well, I can pick up requests, which is normally I want a Bible, can you help me with this? Can I talk? I can pick up requests for a confession right now. So I picked up a couple of requests and go, and the first confession of my life was a murder confession, accessory to murder, intimately involved in it.
Mm.
Yeah, but you hit the ground running.
yeah.
Yeah, you hit the ground running.
What other mission in life changes people's lives forever? Takes people from anguish to peace, gives people from despair to hope, feeds people who are spiritually dying and gives them the bread of life. I mean, it just, when you think about it from mission point of view, everything, it's like, wow, you do all that?
What could be better? Yeah.
I mean, it's not all spectacular cases.
Mm-hmm.
There's a grind, but it's in a context of, we're here to serve and to love and to build families and to change culture and really walk with Jesus as he changed culture. We're his feet, his fingers, and his hands. Oh.
Well, we've been talking about joy, and your faces kind of indicate exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I'll tell you something funny about this, though. I promised myself, I'm never a priest. I am not going to be diocesan, because you spend your whole life in meetings. That's not my life.
Well, Tony's diocesan. I'm religious, so.
Well, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of admin work, and also you don't have the benefit of community that some of the religious priests have.
But I realized that vow of obedience in your order. I couldn't do that. I couldn't live with that. Obedience to the archbishop is fine because he's far away.
Uh-huh.
But just that day-to-day.
No money, no honey, and I got a boss. Poverty, chastity, and obedience.
And what I've heard from seminarians, you'll have to tell me, but what they tell me at the seminary is the hardest of those three, by far, is obedience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something we lay people also know. We have the experience of obedience and how difficult that is when we set aside our will for something that's larger or someone who's in charge. How do you handle that? Is that part of the joy of the priesthood?
Part of the life. So if the life is a joy, then in some way it is. I sent to Cardinal Mahoney. I was at dinner with him, with our class, the week before we were ordained. And he's talking, he said, well, you ready for the ceremony? And I said, I'm fine with everything except when you say, do you promise to obey me? And that part of it. And he looks at me and says, me and my successors.
Ah, yes. When you said that, you reminded me of an old TV show, Happy Days, where the Fonz is there, and there's a point where he's clearly made an error. And so he's trying to get to the point where saying, I was wrong. And you could feel that. It was acted out just beautifully. But I I know that point. Those can be very hard words to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, if you see it also as the Holocaust of ourselves, if we are in persona Christi, and just as Christ obeyed the Father, and Holy Thursday, what's it about? It's Gethsemane, just saying, man, I don't want to go down this road. So if you do it with Christ,
well, I think that's the transition, isn't it? Because you have that
but
moment.
It's still tough. It's still tough. But yeah,
but there's a joy on the other side.
There's a whole. Hey,
I would ask you this, ever. For you, what's the best part of being a priest?
you know something? One answer, all. The Eucharist. I love confession. I love marriage counseling and helping families. And I love community life. And I love just getting up early in the morning and being able to spend an hour in the Blessed Sacrament. I mean, it's just sort of it's all one. I don't know.
When you say that, I thought about this. I thought about what's the best part of being a priest, and the only thing I could come up with, the best part of it is being a priest. The best part of being a priest
all the
is being
pieces
a priest.
fit together.
Kind of like, what's the best part of being a father? Being a father.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah. The best part of it is being a father. And, it's you can't break it down to the pieces. Oh, that's the best, or that one. It's the entirety of it, and who you are.
Well, I think that helps define what the priesthood is too, in that joy, because there's a wholeness that goes with it, the wholeness of purpose, and when your whole body, mind, and soul is oriented in one direction, doing one thing, the conflicts, there are no internal conflicts anymore, and that's where the unhappiness is, when you've got those conflicts, when you're fighting what your orientation is. And here you're being called and just to accept it with your whole heart.
Yeah.
That's what a great gift to us. Thank you.
Without expecting anything, that's St. John on the cross. If you're looking, I need this to be happy, or I need this to be happy, then you're never going to find it. When you descend Mount Carmel, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's nothing until you get to the top, and it's only God, and that's the only place you find it. So, you can't say, well, I did this, my reward should be, or my reward should be this, or this, or this. You just go ahead and live the life and do what you're supposed to do.
Being.
Yeah.
Being a priest.
Even though you're going to fail sometimes.
So, again, part of our condition.
Yeah, that's everything.
Yep. And frustration of a lot of things. Talking with Father Tony, we had a lot of plans the last 3-4 weeks that we could not go ahead with. And we're like, just real frustration. And yet, you go, whoa, I can't hold on to that. This isn't an option, and let's look for another option.
Well, final question for both of you. If someone is interested in pursuing the priesthood, is there a resource that they should look at, something they should read, go to a website? What would you recommend?
Well, I don't know. There are two different answers: religious order and diocesan.
And we're just thinking priesthood right now.
Yes. For the diocese, we have kind of like the Amway system here, and then the branching out here. So we have the vocation office downtown. Then for each region, there's a regional vocation person. And then we have 20 deaneries, and for each deanery under the regional, there's a deanery vocation person. And if they went further than that, then they would like each parish to have a vocation person, but that generally ends up being the priest. So I'd say what they should do is some prayer and some discernment, and then you talk to one of the priests of your parish and go from there. And then the next step would be your deanery vocation person,
and they can help answer questions
right.
and provide a little more counseling.
And they do the come and see at the seminary, where you can go to the seminary and see it and see what the life is like and spend a weekend there. And
Okay.
They used to, I don't know, when I entered, they had a kind of a test, like 10 questions or 15 questions you answer, and you know, if you get 50% of them right, well, you probably have a vocation.
If not, you go through the floor.
Yeah, I got 80 or 90%.
Sorry.
Well, is there something that you'd recommend, Father John?
There's one place called vocation.com that there's a lot of articles on that for discernment, and talks about different orders and things like that. For me, it's going and seeing seminary life and going on a retreat, that discernment, getting the spiritual director, and a lot of time in prayer. Back in the 70s, it was funny because I was at an all-boys school, and I just found myself getting 15 minutes early to school, and I would just sit in front of the Blessed Sacrament complaining to God about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I realized afterwards, that was my discernment. I would just, and if you had asked me if I was going to spend 15 minutes every day in the chapel, I would have laughed. But at that moment, it was so important.
It's what you needed.
Oh, yeah. So.
Well, and God accepts those complaints too.
He laughs and says, "Okay."
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, the other thing to me you have to have is you really have to trust God.
Yeah.
You really have to, because no matter what you do, internship, whatever else, you can't know what it's like until you're in the job.
Yep. That leap of faith.
Yeah, there's just no way to know what it is until you're there, and then you're standing at your first mass and saying, "Does this really count? This is me. Does this really count?" And yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's just no way to know it. You know, and I did my internship and loved it. Had a great experience. Couldn't have been better. But not even close to what the life really is.
Yep.
So you have
And
to
it
trust
just gets better.
Yeah.
I found just gets better. Sorry.
That's great. Well, we are going to wind up now, but I think we should close with a prayer.
Yeah, just so we're off tomorrow. Friday and Saturdays are normally the days we're off.
Got quarantine corner.
Quarantine corner.
So Monday.
We have to make a decision. Easter Sunday, are we here, or are we with family? Easter Sunday.
No one's gonna watch on Easter Sunday. I mean, I think that's a good time for us to all be with our family.
Easter Monday. We resume.
Yeah, we're back Monday.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Tomorrow we have on Guadalupe Radio Good Friday service, such as it is. And we have to cut out half of it because there's no congregation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, and then Saturday we'll do a modified Easter Vigil from the Guadalupe Radio YouTube channel, and it'll be Bishop Dave O'Connell will be the main celebrant, and we'll be there celebrating with him. And then Easter Sunday, where it's at 5, that's at 7.
That one's at 7.
And Easter Vigil's at 7.
Okay.
And then so Good Friday 5, Saturday 7, and then Easter Sunday 5 again. I'm not sure who the presider is for that yet. We're gonna arm wrestle for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got it all right, correct?
You got it. All right.
I'm gonna keep plugging the Legionaries and Guadalupe Radio because they've done us a huge service. They've done the community a huge service by opening this up to us. Yeah, pleasure. We couldn't be in our own church because the internet is so spotty inside the church. You know, it's hard to get a good signal, and you don't know if it's going to cut out, if it's going to work. So it wasn't going to work for us. So this was a lifesaver.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. He's in a hurry to go home.
Well, a little bit.
Well, what you don't know is your wife calls me and pays me
Is that right?
to keep you longer. Yeah. He's been home too much.
We all have,
Yeah.
yes, so.
Today, Holy Thursday,
Holy Thursday.
institution of the Eucharist, so let's make it Christ-centered in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed
Hallowed
be
be
thy
thy
name.
name.
Thy
Thy kingdom come,
thy
thy will be done,
on
on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Amen. All right. Happy Good Friday. Tomorrow.
Beautiful Good Friday.